Hey, good morning, friends. Scott Brookins here. Hope you're having a great day and or a great week. Also, depending on when you're watching this, and I hope you'll like and share this message along with others that I've done to hopefully impact and inspire some other lives that you come in contact with through the few words that God has given me each day that I've done this. So, have you ever had anyone ask you the question, why would anyone do that? Or have you asked somebody that question? And this morning I was kind of doing some praying and planning, and I remembered a story back in 1998. My wife and our two kids, we went to Eastern Europe for a mission trip. This was my second time there. Hey, Danny, good to see you. And we were in Romania, and we were needing to go to Hungary and then to Slovakia, and then back to Romania for some other ministry work. And so we took a bus from Cluj, Romania to Budapest, Hungary, and it was more like a minivan. And so Laura and the kids were sitting in the kind of the back seat. I was sitting next to a young guy. And again, this was 1998, so Romania and the old Eastern Bloc countries hadn't been free for, maybe 8 years. And so it was still, in some of the economies up and down. And so I'm sitting next to this guy, and he ended up knowing English, and he spoke very well. And he's probably in his early 20s. And so we got to talking, and he asked me what we were doing in Romania and why we were going to Budapest. And I said, well, we're doing some ministry work. I'm doing some concerts with my trumpet music and sharing about how God changed my life. Hey, amen, Danny. That's right. And I said, we're going to meet some friends in Hungary. And then I described the rest of our trip. And he said, well, how do you know these friends in Hungary? Yeah. And, I had to tell him that, I don't really know them. They're missionaries from our home church in Colorado Springs. I've never met them. We've just emailed. And he said, well, why can't you call them friends if you've never met them? Which is a great question, right? But it opened the door for me to share about Jesus Christ and how he changed my life and others, and how we have that bond and that relationship. And not sure if he understood that, but then he started asking, what life in America was like. And he was, I believe, an electrician. And he was asking, if I moved to America, what kind of income would I make? And, I made up a number that I thought might comply with his. And of course, it was, so high from what he was making in Romania. But I tried to tell him also that the cost of living in America was higher. And then he asked, like if we owned a home and if people buy a house or an apartment. And I said, most people do. They own a house. And he said, well, how much would that cost? And I, at that time, made up a number. I think I said, let's say $100,000. And but I said, most people don't have that kind of money, so they take out a loan for that. And in 98, at least in our exposure, credit and debt financing was not in Romania yet, which was a good thing. So I explained to this guy that most people would take out a 30-year mortgage and then pay off the house in 30 years. And he said, well, what would the interest rate be? And back then the interest rates were higher, and just for my simple mind, I said 10%. And so he asked me, so you buy a house for $100,000 and you pay for 30 years at 10%. And I said, yeah, that's right. And so he's quiet, and I can kind of hear the wheels turning. He's calculating, and he said, so you would pay $300,000, 3 times the amount of the house. I said, yeah, pretty much. And he said, why would anyone do that? And, of course, the answer is, well, that's what we do. We can't afford the house, so we take out a loan and we pay on it, and that's what we do. But it's a great question, especially when you're coming out of an economy that had no idea of that type of financing. But, even today I've heard on the radio or in the the news that an average car loan is about 84 months in America. Can you imagine 80? That's 7 years, right? If my calculations are right. And so a great question would be, why would anyone do that? And so, but sometimes, we ask those questions, and maybe we need a better answer, to maybe change the situation, because a lot of times if we ask that question, maybe in a job or, church situation, why would we do it this way? And sometimes the answer is, well, it's what we've always done. It's the norm. It's what's considered. This is what we do. Don't ask the question. Just do what you're told to do, right? And sometimes we need to ask the question. And sometimes, the answer is, well, we did it this way, and Joe hurt his finger or cut it off, or we got injured, or we found this is the best way to do it. And then you can say, cool, great, But I want us to kind of challenge ourselves as we go through today, and maybe, from here on, to ask the question, why would anyone do that? Because I've certainly got asked through our ministry of our 23 years, and especially at the beginning, why would anyone do what you're doing? Why would you take your family, your kids that are 8 and 5 years old, to Eastern Europe? Why would you go to Africa? Why would you tell your kids not to major in accounting or whatever it is? And, I'm a firm believer in going after the desires that God's put on your hearts. Even if no one else believes that that's what God's told you to do. I'm a firm believer in that. And I think I've done a couple other messages on that. And but I think, life is short, and life is an adventure. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. And we all have friends and family that have passed away quickly from maybe an accident at a young age, or even an old age. It doesn't matter, or from a disease. And so, we need to just do what God's put on our hearts to do. And sometimes that's going against the grain of society or kind of the normal thinking. And sometimes we need to just do that. And so I wanted you to, go through today and ask that. Why would anyone do that, of something you come in contact with? And maybe it's a good question, like this young man on the bus, where we're financing for 30 years or 7, 8 years on a car. Maybe then there is a better answer. Or maybe it's just because whatever you're thinking of doing just sounds fun. Why would you go ziplining across, a canyon? Well, it just sounds like a great adventure. And so I think that's a great way to live too, because, if things don't work out, you can do something else, right? You can always change. You can always learn from your mistakes or things that didn't work out exactly how you planned or thought, and go do something else. So I hope you'll like this message and share it, and go do what God has told you to do. And sometimes you're not going to have any friends or family that are going to be supportive of what you're doing, and sometimes that's okay. Excuse me. And sometimes, they may ask the question, why are you going to do that? And that may generate some questions of, well, maybe I shouldn't. But don't shy away from having fun, enjoying life, having a joyful heart, enjoying what God has given us, and go have an adventure, and go have an amazing day and inspire others to do the same. God bless.